yeah, the light that they emitted is pure light. Dark forces cannot enter that light at all. There's an awful lot of dark forces that are being eliminated from Earth right now as we speak. We don't know about it, but it is happening. And it's kind of like people having faith in something that they can't see, but it is happening. Um, and we will find out sooner or later.
I'm here today with Annie Palmer. Annie suffered multiple injuries in a car accident in 1981, and she was in a 10-day coma afterwards. During this time, her spirit was taken and given an education at Nirvana University, where she took classes in energy and healing. She was also placed in a healing chair where she experienced Source's total light and love. Meanwhile, her body back on Earth began healing rapidly. Annie has much to teach about what she experienced and learned, and she is here to share that with us today. Annie, thank you so much for being my guest. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today.
Well, thank you for inviting me too. It's going to be really fun.
It is.
Um, yeah, yeah. Um, there's been a number of things in my past that I've been involved in, or that leading up to my near-death experience in 1981. About 1972, 73, I was over at a friend's house, looking out in the back, it was dark, and I saw a UFO, and it was going bottom up on my vision. They said, if you're a UFO, stop, and it stopped. I said, okay, go to the left, and it did, and go straight ahead, and it did, and go to the left again, and then it continued on its way. And those were laying light grids along the earth to protect the earth. And we kind of found out about that through the circles that we were involved in. But I wound up wanting to do something productive in my life instead of uh, being a secretary. I was not me. And so I wound up moving around quite a bit in the United States. And when I lived in Kansas City, Missouri, a friend of mine who was a chiropractor that I worked for recommended that I go to Sherman College of Straight Chiropractic in South Carolina. So I did. And that was where the accident happened. Previous to this, though, a friend of mine, a chiropractor, my first chiropractor I worked for, her name was Barbara Noel. She winds up passing away, a number of years ago now, but she was a real beautiful person. She was looking into a different version of what she wanted to do for her office. She was getting kind of a little bit antsy. So we went to an intuitive, and the intuitive told me, which I was looking for who my husband would be. That was what my main emphasis. But she told me that I'd be involved in a real serious car accident, and to not to worry, I will come back and continue my education and graduate and so forth. So, and she also told me, by the way, don't ride your motorcycle. And I said, really? I won't get a motorcycle. But indeed, I did get a motorcycle in South Carolina. And the day of the accident, she warned me ahead of time that there will be some energy that I'll be um, introducing, an energy that will be directing me in a different way. So I thought, okay. So it was about a week went by and this energy was getting intense. It was at the end of fourth quarter chiropractic college, and I wind up borrowing my boyfriend's car. It was a real superficial friendship. It wasn't really a boyfriend, but anyway, he loaned me his car, and I drove to study for an anatomy final at a friend's house. And that's when the accident happened. Sherman College is on the corner of Springfield Road. And as I was going on Springfield Road, I see this car that was coming towards me from the angle, from the other side, of course. And she was coming towards me, and then she keeps weaving in and out of her lane into my lane. I think, oh, this got to be corrected. It's not going to have a problem. But indeed it did. When she got close enough, I saw she was slumped over her steering wheel. And then the accident happened. And I don't remember specific details. All I remember, though, was I rose above the accident and I saw a student that was rushing out from the chiropractic college to help with the injuries and so forth. And then I come up to a gentleman. Oh, man, he was so cool. He's Archangel Michael. He said, Ann Lee, you have a school that you need to go to first. Don't worry, you'll come back and continue your education here. And I said, I go by Annie. No, very many people can pronounce Ann Lee correct. He said, we know of the problem, but we know you by your given name. So in the meantime, while I was with Archangel Michael, he held me so close. It was beautiful. The love that flowed was unconditional. It was abundant. And he said, oh my gosh, is this what heaven's like? I said, yes. And all my life, I was looking for something more deeper, something real deeper instead of the superficial stuff that I saw through other religions. And this is where I wanted to go. This was it. So anyway, he then told me that he's going to be giving me to my twin flame, to his twin flame's arms, who was residing in a, some people call it a tunnel. It's more of a frequency shift from one frequency to another to get you into Nirvana. And I was held by my twin flame, and oh my, that was beautiful. It was mirroring my light, extending my light from within me out to him and him to me. It was just beautiful exchange. And that exchange also, and I'm just recognizing this right now, that that was one of the codes that I have come through since then. But anyway, I get onto the front porch of this beautiful university. The walls were thick with love, and the lights, the colors, excuse me, the colors emitted light, and you knew you were really welcome, really full of love. And I walked into the school, and this beautiful lady asked me what I wanted to take. I said, oh, I kind of don't know. I'm just not here for the long term. But she didn't know that, and she directed me to one class, and then that didn't work. And then she directed me to another class who she was talking to by one of my professors. Her name's Mary, and she introduced me to this other class, which was all about healing. And I said, oh, that's it. This is perfect. So I sat down, and Archangel Raziel was talking about geometric shapes and quantum physics and how that implies love and light into our life. So I was sitting there, and I didn't need to take notes. It was just absorbed. I was absorbing all the information. And then Mary comes back in again. After I thought about all this, one of the things that he talked about was one of the things that we can use to access light and access a connection is crystals and geometric shapes. And I thought to myself, well, just get right to source, because that's quicker and easiest. And if you don't have a crystal, if you don't, whatever, get right to source. So meanwhile, Mary walks in, and she asked me what I think about it. I said, yeah, this is great stuff, but just get to source. And then she asked me if I wanted to go back to Earth. I said, you kidding? This is pretty cool. I want to stay here. And she said, well, let me show you what you'd be involved with. And she showed me a picture of my kids, and I looked at my daughter and thought, oh yeah, this is cool. And I saw my son, and meanwhile, yeah, that's it. So then she said, okay, your body's dying. We need to get you reprogrammed, rejuvenated, and healed. So then I sat in, she introduced me to this room. Is by there was nothing else in this room except for a chair that was up on a pedestal. So I walk up and I sit in the chair. Instantly, oh God, I was involved with the total universe, total love, total light, and it was a knowing that was beyond all knowing in the university itself. It was perfect. And I sat there, and while I was being healed back on earth, the physicians were surprised. My body was healing. I fractured my left hip with all three of the bones, the ischium, pubic, and ilium bone. The ischium, excuse me, the acetabulum also is where your femur head, your bone, your leg bone connects with your hip. That's called the acetabulum. That was fractured. And I was losing blood, constantly losing blood. And they had to give me 8 pints of blood altogether. And I wind up having AB negative blood, which was kind of a challenge, but I think they gave me blood O, which was, well, I'm here now, so they knew what they're doing. But anyway, they were surprised at how fast I was healing. I had to lay in traction for 6 weeks. They took my femur head off of the acetabulum, and all of the joints in my acetabulum that was fractured, they all held together, held at once, and they connected. There was no need to have a plate put in. It was healed from me sitting in the chair. So I had also 8 fractured ribs on my left side. And since then, too, I have had arthritis in my hips and my fractured ribs and so forth. So I still have physical challenges. I need to go back and sit in the chair. But anyway, getting back to Nirvana, I don't know what time it was when, how long I sat there. And I sat there for a while, and she came in and she told me about some healing that gets to that helps us get to our connection with source, which does not have anything to do with the cognitive thinking, because cognitive thinking also has its limitations, such as you can't do that, you're not good enough to do that, who are you to do this? Just all of the negative input that we have encased in our physical body. And throughout research and downloading the codes and stuff, I see that as a suit of armor that we put on our bodies to um, so-called protect us from whatever, from the outer world or from our inner world. And anyway, so that is a false self that we place emphasis in on our enlightenment, who we really are. So we went into this one room where I saw a whole bunch of filing cabinets, just like the old time library. And it was the Akashic records where all the souls or all their experiences were in these filing cabinets. And for my interpretation, this is what I saw. It was the filing cabinet that she pulled out. She got permission from the owner to pull out the filing cabinet. So we did, and there was just holographic images inside this filing cabinet of her experiences. So she said, now we have an ability to release these. And the next room that we went into, I saw a bunch of monitors. And through one of the monitors, we see a lot of people in this field, and they were processing out all of the confines, all of the problems and everything that had to do with their internal blocks, which are represented in my version of our shell that we have placed within us. So they were processing those all out through accessing the light and then eliminating their connection with that deceptions. And in that field, there was one gentleman who had continuous time and time and time, lifetime after lifetime, problems with another gentleman. They could not get over their blocks, their karma, and why they were there to release their karma by incarnated into the physical 3D. And one of them did release all of his. He was pure, and pure love is who we really are. So he stands up within pure love. The other guy, who was his partner in crime, he sat down and he started clearing the energy. And when he got it cleared, they both looked at each other in pure love. They expressed pure love to one another, and they get up and they shake hands. And at that moment, all their karma was gone instantly. Within the field, all the people were generating that love light, that essence, the frequency that is involved in accessing our purest love. And that was why it was all full of love and light, and everybody was really happy. So I back off and I said, boy, I can see how this happens, but nobody's going to believe me. I'll be a small town chiropractor, and who would believe me? You need to get somebody famous. But no, they already have their own personality, and it would be really difficult for people to see past that personality. We need to have somebody who's not known. And then I went to another room where she was showing me, she showed me that I needed to have a download of this process. So I went into this other room, and this also is another code that recently came through of who this gentleman was. I knew I went into this room, but I didn't know who the gentleman was. Ezekiel was standing behind a table, and there was another gentleman to his left. there was a series of books on this real long, huge table. One of them was opened up, and I was guided to go over to that book and lean into it. And all of these particles instantly reached up into me, and I absorbed everything. It was like absorbing the whole book. And then I backed away. I knew that was what I needed to do. And then I went back to the room where Mary was, and she was giving me some more information. I stepped into the flame of my twin flames and my twin flame. I stepped into that twin flame, and I saw him on another density, on another level. He's a beautiful being, beautiful, beautiful person. And then I was shown the picture of a gentleman who was going to be stepping out, and he's going to help me remember my process of being in near death experience. And that gentleman is Nick Bunig. I saw him on a wall, and he was one of the people that stepped out in the late 90s. I don't know if he's still around, but he was Paul of Desaris, and he stepped out with that information. And there were further details with that, but the experience happened in 1981 and had been a while since the codes have generated a memory within me of accessing the codes. My life has totally changed. I have been able to communicate with people who have been deceased, which is not new, but more prevalent now. I have talking with a couple of friends who died. One in particular, her name was Dixie. I went over to her house while she was alive, living still, and she shortly after that, she passed away. But I went up to her, she was sitting down, I went up to her and I was on my knees and said, Dixie, the next adventure you have is going to be astronomical. It's going to be phenomenal. You won't have any physical condition, physical problems like you do now. You'll be free. You will also feel the love you have been looking for your whole life, which is very, very significant. All the people that when they come back out of our near-death experiences, we explain that the love is profound. So anyway, we talked about that, and she kind of patted this book. She said, yeah, I was thinking about you, and I was hoping that you'd come by before I passed. And so it was a beautiful exchange. And then I said, when you die, just come up and visit me. I'll see you. And she said, okay. So a couple weeks went by, and then I see her in my living room, or excuse me, in my bedroom. She said, Annie, thank you for being my friend. I said, well, thank you for being my friend too. And I said, now you know who I really am. She said, yes, because she denied that. And I don't really want to go there because it's a little bit far-fetched for some people, but that's okay. Anyway, we talked a little bit, and she said that she'd be able to connect with me readily if I needed it. And then a couple months later, we had a celebration of life with a number of people that were at her support groups. She did UFO conferences at her house, other things too. And she was there. We invited her, and she showed up, and we were at a coffee house. There was about, a dozen or so of us. And she shared some information with everybody, thanking them for their purpose and what they were doing on Earth and with her. And that was really beautiful. And a couple of times I've connected with her. I also connect with Ezekiel, and he's giving me a lot of information on the particle movement. Now, the particles and quarks are really significant with this in referencing to how we connect. And you don't need to be a neuroscientist or a physician or anything, just real simple, basic information. Our particles and quarks are everywhere. And there's a book that's out. This is the book, Quarks of Light. At the age of 56, Rob Gentle had a massive heart attack followed by a profound near-death experience. On his journey to his heart transplant, he was close to death again and entered the ethereal a second time. He found himself inside a shapeless, formless vacuum of unending and infinite vastness. He was everywhere at once, scattered across timeless expanse and connected to the wisdom of the universe. all of it without words, which is significant. That goes back to what we're talking about. It's not words, it's a magnetic thinking. He saw and simultaneously became part of a gigantic interactive web of twinkling lights covering the earth and stretching into infinity. Curiously, some of the parts of the web were bright, some dim, and some completely dark. He later came to believe that this web represents a network that binds us all and is built upon quarks, the smallest elements of matter, and which we are made of light, and which are made of light. While in the ethereal, he understood that each quark of light symbolized a life. He realized that if he hurt himself, he would hurt everything connected to him. But if he loved, light would spread. Rob also saw his daughter with special needs, perfect, whole, and radiant. In Quarks of Light, Rob shares his journey and provides a roadmap for overcoming adversity, discovering your true identity, staying in spirit, and connecting to the universe language of love and light. I bought this. I knew exactly what he was talking about. And it's a beautiful, beautiful book. Quarks and particles is the essence. A particle and a quark have magnetic influence. Magnetic influence also is part of how our neurons synapse. A neuron or nerve fiber has a body and has dendrites that gives information to the body, and then axon, which delivers the message to the target. When the axon is at rest, it's negative charged on the inside, positive on the outside. When there's a synapse, they flip and go all the way down. It's a straight one-way movement down to the target. If we were to break up our thinking and realizing that the initial phase of thought is all about magnets, then that is the overlooked thinking that we have not really looked at over the period of time. Now, 1905, Albert Einstein proposed that light and all electromagnetic radiation consists of packets of energy. These packets of electromagnetic energy are now called photons. Each photon energy is proportional to the frequency of light. Light and love are the same. There is no difference. It's like the same side of a coin, different sides of the coin, but it's the same coin. As we generate light, we are also accessing love. Now, a lot of people have had problems in their life with domestic violence. So that version of love has created a block. I had domestic violent marriage for 10 years, which one of the things of why I did not progress. When I think about light, there's nothing that is attached to light. It's just generic. That's all there it is. So what I did was I would get my crystals. I have a huge crystal. I also have smaller crystals, and I hold them, and I will think only light, access light. The crystals are a form of being grounded. So they will kind of reflect back what you want, what you're thinking to them within the particles and the quarks within the crystals. So I had a problem one time years ago when I had I was working for a local paper, and I'd be delivering these papers, and I had like 4 or 5 paychecks from the papers. And one day they said that we needed to go to their bank and cash the checks in. I didn't have an account there. It'd be $10 each check, which didn't make sense. I'd have to be paying for my payment. So I wound up going to my bank, my credit union, and they went through and processed it. And I said, okay, when will this totally clear their bank? And so about 4 or 5 days. I can't wait that long. I was really worried. And I kept calling the company, and they said, well, the last person said, well, all we can do is pray about it. I'm thinking, this doesn't make sense. Why are you telling me there's got to be something wrong? Why are you telling me to cash my check there? So Anyway, I sat down with my crystal Nancy and all my other crystals surrounding me and sat in a chair, and I rejected, repelled out anything that was fear driven about how the checks will clear. I attracted light only. And I kept doing it until for 2 hours, until I was full of light and nothing else. And then when I was full of light, I said, I projected, repelled out the light into the banks, into the companies. There was 2 companies, into both companies. Everybody there, everybody was on the same page. I projected the light into and held it at that magnetic frequency. Meanwhile, my cognitive thought would be able to go about the daily activities. So I knew that that was held there because of the feeling of the light being inundated and into everywhere. So a couple of days later, I felt a clearing. So I knew my check had cleared. The very next day, I found out that found out that that company declared bankruptcy. And that was what it was all about. Yeah, I was surprised too, but they wound up reorganizing their funds and they're still in business now. But so that was an extreme example of being able to reject anything that is fear driven, your normal security, everything out, and then attract our light. This is who we really are, the light within ourselves. So my message that I'd really like to get out is talking about the particles, is talking about the magnetic frequency potential that we all have in delivering a message for everybody to be able to expel out what they don't want and attract our reality, which is love, light.
Annie, tell me about the magnets again.
Okay,
I want to understand that a little better.
this is a difficult thing to understand unless you. I get it because I leaned over the book, but magnets, they're either repel or attract. If you get some magnets and start to feel what it feels like to repel and attract, your neurons already know how to do this. D.D. Palmer was the original founder of chiropractic back in the 1800s. He was doing magnet therapy before he discovered chiropractic and eliminated nerve interference. We have the ability to think magnets. If you were to take magnets to, like, say, well, I took magnets to a Unity church, and I felt it attracting. I didn't let them touch, but I kept feeling how it felt like to attract. And that's my awareness, doesn't just stay in my mind, but my awareness started to recognize this form of communication. I was also attracting all the problems everybody in the congregation had. They were trying to eliminate, which was attracted into me. So what I did then was I turned it around and I repelled it out, and I felt awareness, felt that repelling, and I was able to repel myself out, repel out the light to not be attracted to what they were there to heal. And I don't know, that's none of my business what they did with that. That was, boy, that's like 30 some years ago. So that was the start of how I started to recognize magnetic therapy. Now, my crystal, can I go get my crystal,
Sure.
Nancy? Okay. Magnetic therapy, magnetic thinking is the connection that we have that a lot of people don't recognize because it's in a communication that's difficult, but it's just takes practice. Like, you don't learn French overnight. That takes practice. So learning this different form of communicating does take practice. So these are my two mini crystals that I carry around. And this is Nancy. She's got a lot of energy. I went to somebody who told me, she held her, she was intuitive, and she said that this is a form, excuse me, this is a conduit for 3 galaxies. She's just really, really powerful. And when I was going through that process, I leaned over her and I attracted light, just like the magnets. I attracted light. And I was at a point there where, of course I was able to do that, but I attracted the light, filled up with light, and that was what projected out. So start with magnets. And I like crystals. If you have another thing that you like to use, it's up to you, because everybody's in a different path. The other thing that I also love doing too is listening to Om mantra. It's a online. It's a 2 hour long of a mantra where people are generating beautiful, beautiful frequency. We could use that too also, but most importantly is to get separated from the problem. It's very important. I went to the 2012 IONS conference, and Frederick Delarue he's a musician from his near-death experiences. I was on stage with a friend, and there were 4 of us, and we all got healed. He generates his healing by music, and there was 500 people that were in the audience. Shy Annie, I said, yeah, let's do it. So I went up there, and he gave everybody a mantra. And for me, it was first off, it was to visualize a flower blooming a rose blooming over and over and over. But then he changed that to a fleur-de-lis. See a fleur-de-lis blooming over and over. So that's what I did. I repeated, I am light, and filled up my consciousness with feeling that, or seeing that flower blooming over and over. Meanwhile, he did music. And there's also Frederick Delarue, and I could send you the links when I can get online of where people can go. He's got a free website, a free music that he gives out to humanity, and I can send that to you later. And that's really good. So that was one thing that generated an awful lot of healing for me, was got to get separate however you can by placing your emphasis of a problem into something else, like a stage, and walk away from it. Or yoga, there's a mantras with yoga, and also Buddhism has mantras, and they have ability to get separate from the problem, because that is really critical. But my emphasis with my near-death experiences is the magnetic frequency, because that will generate that thought process of what we really desire through our free will to eliminate the problems.
In the beginning, you were talking about the grid lines in the sky. There's a UFO creating
Yeah.
these grid lines. Does that have something to do with magnetic energy also?
Yes, I'm getting an answer. Yes. Extraterrestrials are very, very advanced, and they guide their ships by magnetic frequency, by thinking, but they don't need neurons for that. As we're in the physical, we need neurons to think. They don't. It's more of a different level of communication. And yeah, the light that they emitted is pure light. Dark forces cannot enter that light at all. There's an awful lot of dark forces that are being eliminated from Earth right now as we speak. We don't know about it, but it is happening. And it's kind of like people having faith in something that they can't see, but it is happening. And we will find out sooner or later. also, extraterrestrials have been here for a very long time, not just since I think it was 1947 when they arrived at Roswell. When there was a crash at Roswell, they've been here for a long time. And I also connect with them too. When we think, when we start to be able to think in magnetic thinking, we open up to different frequencies that we can communicate telepathically. Um, I have since for 5 some years, I've been connecting with my twin flame on the etheric level, and he's a beautiful being. Um, he told me when I was in Nirvana, or on in that process of Nirvana in '81, he said he will be with me when I step out. And I didn't really know how that would happen, but I had to open up to the etheric realm, and he's with me during in that realm, and guides me and helps me. But when we can telepathically connect with somebody, that's one of the avenues that we are advancing into a different density, a refined density. And there's other things that will be opening up to us as soon as all of the dark forces get off the planet. And there have been still other dark forces that are uh, causing problems. And they cause problems in our world through fear. 9/11 is one huge problem that they caused. And then there's other things along the line. And the recent, I don't know this for a fact just because it's so recent, but the parent, or the, not apparent, but the not suicide, when Trump got shot at. That,
Assassination?
yes, thank you. One of the problems with having being in a 10-day coma is my cognitive stuff, my ability to cognitively articulate. But anyway, yeah, that no doubt is from dark forces. Anything that they try to generate fear and trying to hover and trying not to get out of your apartment or wherever your house, that's generated through the dark forces. Oh, we could go on with that, but let's just stick to accessing the light, because the light is where we're moving into. And the more light we have, the more light we generate, keeping out of all fear whatsoever, is where we're going. And the more light we have that we give Gaia, give to Earth, and give to our communities, the quicker we will be involved in accessing light.
There's a lot of people thinking about this change that's happening. It is on many people's minds. Do you think it's going to be like a big, beautiful spiritual awakening for all of mankind?
Eventually, yes. The everybody that I'm glad you mentioned that, because that brings up a problem of people thinking that we're in the fourth dimension, and it's more called a density. If we all were in the fourth density, there would be no questions, no what ifs, ands, or buts, we would know it. There's a lot of people that are still generating the fear aspect in third density. As a collective, we are not there. Individually is a different story. That's where we know that there's a process going on. We know it's the best effort for us to evolve, and it's a process. We're just in one chapter, it's not the whole book that we're in right now. My favorite of all websites, MatthewBooks.com. He gives about once a month, he'll give messages. And Susie Ward is his mom, who is a friend of mine. She lives here in my town in Washington. And we've met quite a few times. And I know Matthew Ward, I have communicated with him. He's a brilliant light, and he gives perfect information. Susie is a reporter, so-called. She does not alter any of the messages that comes through here. Sometimes she's kind of surprised, like, you think we should say this? I go, yeah, let's do it. And it's not her. It's the Matthew Ward and his trusted source in Nirvana or wherever he's at that gives her the information. It's a true source. He also, the most late recent ones, he also has been giving really, really good information, positive information. And he too, well, this is like where I came from too, generate light only. Stay away from the news because that's not really reality. The newscasters are told what to say and they don't really have a choice because that's their job. And if you look over throughout the world, and they will repeat the same story, word by word, maybe one or two changes. So it's kind of like there's only one message that the cabal or the dark forces want to get out. So I don't pay any attention to the news, but I do get some insights from that. When I do look at the news or little clips, I know what is going on within my own mind. I'm stable within the light, so I don't really get too far, too deep. But, there's like the Trump assassination. That was kind of shocking. Um, and I was really surprised that the kid who shot that, how could, he was an expert. It was almost as if that really sure, are you sure that was him that did that?
So the changes that are happening on the planet are for good. We're removing the darkness, or the darkness at least is being removed, and we're moving into the light.
Exactly. And we are being shown what is not right. All of the stuff around us, we know that's not right. So what is correct is love and being kind, doing something kind to somebody you don't know, giving water to somebody that needs it, or just smile. That works. Just be really nice. In my process, what I'm bringing out is effective and it's in tune, but we don't have to go that far either. Just be kind and nice and know that everything's going to be working out. Beautiful references like MatthewBooks.com is really substantial to help us through this. There are other sources that also are a little bit flaky. They kind of give you a real good introduction, but then pretty soon they'll come in the sense that you are going to be ascending only if you follow my word. First off, that doesn't follow free will. Free will is bottom line. That's our growth for free will, the free will for us to know only love and nothing else. So that's my source to help me through. Also, comedy will help us through when we're really inundated with heavy stuff, comedy. And one of Matthew's recent messages, he says, get enough sleep. That also is a real good one, too.
Going back again to these grid lines that
Mm-hmm.
this UFO was creating over Earth, you said that it was to protect Earth. What was it protecting Earth from?
I got the feeling back then, which made sense to me. We already, in the 70s, well, we already had a lot of negative input, a lot of dark forces that were already on the planet. I think that was something that was preventing any more dark forces to enter into the planet. But I couldn't say for sure. That's my guess. And that's just coming from Annie's guess. Um, but a friend of mine who was a trusted friend of mine, he wound up being a Unity minister. His name's Bob. He said that was to protect Earth. And Nirvana or heaven also has a layer where no dark forces at all can get into that uh, level of awareness. That's kind of like a vacation for people to be able to get relieved from all the negativity, the input that they had throughout their incarnations or lives or whatever. They're kind of relieved and accessing only light. And that in essence was essentially what I feel was the start of Earth evolving and getting out of the dark forces. One of Susie's books is 2012, Life Beyond 2012. It's the very last book that she had, is accumulation of all of the books throughout her writing. There was 4 other books, accumulation of all of the entities, the benevolent entities who were accessing through her, giving us information on how to move into 4th density. A lot of people, a lot of planets decided that well, one in particular said that they didn't really need any light input from the benevolent people. Well, they wound up clearing theirs over 10,000 years. It took really a long time. Gaia, Mother Earth, is on a different story. We're accessing benevolent light at a speed of light, beyond the speed of light, that will eliminate our karma in one lifetime. A lot of people come in and it's really heavy for them. I know a friend of mine, she's really, really ill. She's gone through surgeries after surgeries and she still goes through problems. She is clearing a lot of the karma that she has. But to tell her that right up front would cause her own problems to escalate because she couldn't handle that information. So being gentle with individuals who are going through problems, just giving them little snippets of information. Like she goes into seizures and I said, okay, what is the problem with your seizure? What happened prior to that? And she said, stress. I said, okay, let's build up. Why don't you build up what is positive within yourself? And she, later on in the conversation, she talked about something that was really enlightening. I said, okay, let's stop there. You really loved your mother. You loved that essence. That gave you a lot of light. Keep thinking that and don't think of any stress, anything else. Just don't think about that. And that was just something to help her through. And there's another time where this lady, I was in a Max. Portland has trains and they call it Max. I was on a train and this one lady was babbling about something. She said, everybody, they said I was such and such. And she started in tears. And I have a little card that said, you are beautiful. And I looked up at her and just shined it to her. And she looked at that and she said, you don't know me. And she stopped crying. She asked for a hug. And that was something that helped her through. Just little things like that helps people through. And I don't know if she's so that problem was so severe that I don't think that really helped her long term, but at that moment it did. We also have access through asking. It's very important for us to ask because the benevolent ETs respect our free will. They will not come in and do something for us to take away our karma because that's why we are here. We're here to eliminate karma and advance into knowing only love, love light, know only that and nothing else. And that goes back to what happened to me when I needed to know only love and nothing else, or light and nothing else.
Are the benevolent ETs here to help us transition to this
Yes,
new light life?
yes, they are. They'll give us. I call them codes. Some people call them tools or methods. I call them codes that I'm bringing through because that resonates with a certain frequency. Getting back to the quarks of light, it resonates within a certain frequency that will access the light quicker through the codes. They send us light, and there's a benevolent beings that are not involved in the physical realm. They don't need to be. Their source for connecting to accessing what they need to know for more information is source itself. They give us light when we ask, and we don't need to know where they're from. We don't need to know their names. Just access the light from the benevolent beings. Just ask for light, and it's here instantly. Our ability to see it is when we get rid of the cloak that we have on us, that suit of armor that we have built on us, built around us. And that is difficult in one sense because we don't recognize that it's there. But once we get objective to a problem, we can just start off with a small problem and just put that problem aside. You could put it on a stage and process that out and look at it. This is on the stage. The holographic images, you can see that on a play, on a stage. And the holographic images are doing their thing. And just keep it getting as separate as possible, separating that out. And then as you get that separated, feel and see the bottom of the stage fill up with light. And as that's filling up with light, that will carry that package of images away towards the stage. At the back end of the stage is a curtain, and the light generated from the curtain is Sananda's light, who knows different, knows that that's not real, and will eliminate it instantly when we give that through our free will, give that package to Sananda's light and eliminate it, and it will be eliminated. And then step off the stage. You can walk back to the beginning of the theater and look back. And when you look back, it's all light. You're separated from that problem so far, it is gotten into the light, and you are then inundated within the light yourself. It's a real key thing about getting separated. That's when I separated when I was holding Nancy. I was getting separate, and that's very critical. Other resources like we talked about, MatthewBooks.com, his messages is important because the more light we have, the better off. And you can go on MatthewBooks.com, and that one book I spoke about, it's accumulation of 4 books altogether. Susie was going to a conference in Sedona in 2012, and God told her to get a combination of all the material in a book all at once. And she had limited time to do. You got to be kidding me. Wait a minute. Getting all this together, I don't know if I could do this, but she did it. And it was really a beautiful book. And she took it down to Sedona and sold that at the conference that she went to. And she's a beautiful lady. She's really cool. She's 90. She had a not too long ago a massive heart attack, but she recovered from that. And a lot of my Facebook friends and everybody I knew, we sent her a lot of light, and it was helping generate, plus Matthew on her and her angels helped generate her to be able to come back and continue.
The ETs that you speak about, are they from this universe, just maybe like another planet or somewhere out in space, or are they interdimensional beings?
I think interdimensional will be more of it, because our universe is not, it's limited to compared to the interdimensional, which includes everything. So I think that would be a better word. Some of them are from this universe, but there are people who are involved in the third dimension now. They are special forces. They have the ability to see beyond the physical, and they are the ones too that have also, and this is in Matthew's messages, they have been able to eliminate a lot of the toxins that were so-called trying to prevent or trying to kill a lot of people. They have prevented a lot of problems because they were involved in minimizing the toxins that were brought through some of the so-called organizations, and they have eliminated a lot of that problems. And that you can find out more on MatthewBooks.com.
Do they travel here using magnetic force, magnetic energy?
Um, I think so. They also travel here on stuff I don't understand, but it's kind of like our universe is more like warped, not warped, but um, it's not the speed of light. Let me go back. Our version of how to travel is with rockets. Their version of how to travel is through kind of like the universal energy is bent, and they can travel through that. I'm kind of not really up on that speed right now, but I do know that they can travel at the speed of thought. Oh, speaking of that, there is a book that's by Richard Bach. It was about the reluctant Messiah. It's the second part of his the book's title. But Richard Bach did this in the 70s, and it was about this reluctant Messiah who was helping show how to evolve, and we can, at the speed of thought, go from one place to the next, which is etheric travel, or leaving your body, or astral traveling. Um, and he was learning a lesson on how to think things or unthink things. And the example was for him to go up to a cloud and think to the cloud to disappear. So he would do that. He would go up to the cloud and dissipate the cloud and see it disappearing and disappearing. I believe that, really strongly believe that. So what I do with when I'm sitting out on my back patio and I see chemtrails, I'll do the same thing, and I'll look up to the chemtrail and I will see it disappearing, and they will disappear. There was one time when I did that, and there was a prayer that I said, and the very one part of the prayer was to totally disappear and cease to exist. And when I said cease to exist, I was still holding that with my magnetic thinking, as thinking said cease to exist, and the plane disappeared. And I told Susie Ward about that. We were visiting for coffee a couple of days later, and she said, "Oh, that's really cool, because that's what that's what we're moving into. We can think and unthink things." So that was kind of fun, but it's a practice. I said, "Well, I've been doing this like for 4 or 5 years on my back patio, just going up and just disappearing chemtrails." And that's not yeah, I mean, it takes practice. Just like the thought process of thinking magnets takes practice. And I had a friend of mine too. His name was Quinn. He was involved in a plane accident. So he's in the etheric realm. And whenever there's chemtrails, I'll call on him. I said, Quinn, we have some chemtrails. And say, okay, I'm on it. And they have the ability with their ships to dismantle the chemtrails. And so he'll dismantle that. His accident was an airplane that he made himself. And unfortunately, he died. He was a beautiful being. But he's a etheric realm now, helping keep it clean. And that's what the ETs do too. They will clean up when asked, and also they'll be able to do that better when they're here on Earth in the physical as well. And that's got some political things behind it why we don't know about it yet, but that'll change.
It looks like we're in for some big changes, but good ones.
Yes, yes. And the more positive we are, the more light we are, the quicker it'll happen, because we are benevolently strong in the light. That's who we really are. And when we feel light, see light, and acknowledge it, give light to Gaia, we're going to be changing. And that's what we're here to do. There were many, many, many millions of souls who wanted to incarnate, but we are here now because we have the ability within ourselves to access the light and to move ahead with the light and nothing else. So and we're connecting with people like you and other people who are generating light, who want us to know we're something different than just this shell of a physical body. That's benevolent, and that's accessing the light too. So you are very strong in the light yourself, and moving in with that on your own, which is what you're doing. Your free will is doing these types of podcasts, and that's so benevolent. It's really cool. You're on the right track.
Well, thank you. And I thank you for sharing your story, your experiences, and your knowledge, because without stories like yours, without people like you, I would have nothing to do. So we make a good team.
Oh, you'd probably think of something, no doubt. Well, most important for everybody, like I was saying, is just to think light. Go to resources like matthewbooks.com, to the messages. You can get on with a monthly message and get their messages, but the messages go back about 25 years. And the books are really important. The most important one is the Life Beyond 2012. That's very, very good. And I I have heard people give bad news about Susie Ward, and I'm thinking, you don't know Susie like I know Susie. She has no no ego whatsoever. She wants to put that aside. She's not there. She's just and somebody who just gives information out, and that's it. And does not add to it. She doesn't know what to add to it. So she's really nice and benevolent. And when she first started, she had 100 angels surrounding her property, giving light only. And then Matthew, her son, came through. He was involved with a fatal car accident when he was 17 in Peru. And that's the message, how the messages are coming through him. But there's more information on that on that website.
Well, Annie, I want to thank you for being my guest. If my viewers wanted to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Well, I'm on Facebook. My given name is was Isaacson, Isaacson. Isaacson Palmer is who I am on Facebook. Annie, also 1981 NDE at gmail.com is how they can get a hold of me. I also do one-on-ones, like through Zoom. I can connect with their energy on telepathically on Zoom. I can give them anybody tools or information or codes, codes to eliminate their problem or access the light and help them see what to do to eliminate their problem. The codes that I give are in the form of meditations. And when they follow the meditation step by step, that'll help eliminate the dark forces within them for the clarity of light to be experienced. And I apologize for fumbling around as I did all day. There's sometimes I have good days when the information just flows, and I know this was not the day, but I appreciate you having me and being receptive to my information.
You were wonderful. I didn't see anything to apologize for. You were absolutely perfect.
Oh, thanks.
If you had one message that you'd hope the viewers would take away from today's conversation, what would that be?
To look to their free will first. Access information that is benevolent, that is only light, by first off saying, this is my free will, I want this, and move forward with that. Also, the quarks of light is a good reference, but particles and quarks are magnetically influenced. The magnetic influence we have of how our neuron synapse is how we connect with that internal light that is held by the particles and quarks of light, particles of light. Einstein also talked about that. One of my class about quantum physics is not as well understood because science has had its own confines of how to generate information, which quantum physics does not fit. So they only go on theories, but knowing that is part of part of the limitations that we have, we can move beyond that. Think for yourself, know for yourself, and go to good resources. When you feel that there is a little hesitation with a message that comes through, back off right away and just leave that alone. Only stabilize in light and practice magnets. Practice with magnets. Keep doing what it feels like to repel or attract. That will access us to be able to recognize our awareness, to recognize that this is a form of communication. And meditate as much as you can. Meditate on accessing light. I also recommend going to Buddhists because they have a limit how to eliminate thoughts through Buddhism. And yoga is really excellent. There's a physician, his name's Matthew Van Auken, Matt Van Auken. He has weekly meditations. And if anybody is interested, I could give you his website. Just forward that information to me, my email address, and I can forward that information to you. We just had a meditation this morning. It was beautiful. He is a benevolent being, just full of light, and he's here to help us access light through his yoga. And there's more information on that I could give other people, but I don't want to go further with that. He's a beautiful being, but I highly recommend him. Matt Van Auken. Buddha's Medicine is his website. Buddha's Medicine.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Annie. This has been a pleasure for me. I really appreciate you sharing your story. You're helping so many people. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me. And if you wanted to do another episode, that's fine with me too. We could go for more if anybody's interested.
Yeah, we might just do that.
Sweet. Alrighty. Well, hope you have a good day, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near-death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.